Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Udiraye. Do we have the usual amount of light in here? It just seems a little darker than usual, doesn't it? Yes. Maybe we can have more light. That tune, the first part of it I heard at Uddhavakund when we were going on parikram, and I recorded it. And then later I brought it to my music teacher, and then he said, oh, this goes with that. So he pulled that last part from Kadambakananda Maharaj's. You know, he fills up a stadium with his voice, and he has these grandiose tunes. So he said, same scale, let's put them both together. That's why I said it's old, but it's new in the sense that it's two combined tunes. One from Uddhavakund and one from Kadambakananda Maharaj. So we've got today the prayers of Queen Kunti at 1:8:35. And here she says, and yet others say that you appeared to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshiping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. In the Srimad Bhagavatam Gita, the Lord asserts that he appears in every millennium just to reestablish the way of religion. The way of religion is made by the Supreme Lord. No one can manufacture a new path of religion, as is the fashion for certain ambitious persons. The factual way of religion is to accept the Lord as the supreme authority, and thus render service unto him in spontaneous love. A living being cannot help but render service because he is constitutionally made for that purpose. The only function of the living being is to render service to the Lord. The Lord is great, and the living beings are subordinate to him. Therefore, the duty of the living beings is just to serve him only. Unfortunately, the illusioned living beings, out of misunderstanding only, become servants of the senses by material desire. This desire is called avidya, or nescience. And out of such desire, the living being makes different plans for material enjoyment centered about a perverted sex life. He therefore becomes entangled in the chain of birth and death by transmigrating into different bodies on different planets under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Unless, therefore, one is beyond the boundary of this nescience, one cannot get free from the threefold miseries of material life. That is the law of nature. The Lord, however, out of his causeless mercy, because he is more merciful to the suffering living beings than they can expect, appears before them. I'm going to read that again, it's too nice. Here we go. The Lord, however, out of his causeless mercy, because he is more merciful to the suffering living beings than they can expect, appears before them and renovates the principles of devotional service comprised of hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping, praying, cooperating, and surrendering unto him. Please look up renovate in the etymological dictionary, renovate. Adoption of all of the above-mentioned items, or any one of them, can help a conditioned soul get out of the tangle of nescience and thus become liberated from all material sufferings created by the living being illusioned by external energy. This particular type of mercy is bestowed upon the living being by the Lord in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As a bhave smin. Bhave means in the material creation. Asmin, this, klishamananam, means of those who are suffering from avidya, nescience. kama, desire, karma pi, by execution of fruit of work, shravana, hearing, smarana, remembering, arhani, worshipping Krishna, may perform iti, thus kechana. And yet others say that you appear to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls may suffer from material pangs, might take advantage and gain liberation. We offer our respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to all the disciplic succession, and to all the assembled devotees. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripa sindhavya patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Now you have to do a little work. Ask relevant questions pertaining to this verse that enhance the conversation. If they don't meet that criteria, we'll eject you from the classroom and you'll have to go clean the parking lot. Okay. Actually, that's a privilege. So I should have offered that because you'll probably do it. All right, go for it. Relevant questions that enhance the conversation.
Guru Maharaj, in the morning, in the japa cycle, you were mentioning how we should always remember that our service is the only thing, that's the only thing which we have. So my question is that in our life, we come across different situations where we get distracted and get enamored by all the disturbances which we have. So how can we always keep our focus on the point that our service is our main thing?
Well, one way is to remember the path of the great saints. And we get naturally in this world enlivened by others who are doing things that we admire. And people take after the ways of those that they admire, whether it's in academics or whether it's in athletics or the arts in some way. And the path of success in devotional service, to stay focused, is to study the ways of the saints and become attached to them. As Rishabhadev said, that the doorway to spiritual life opens when we become more and more attached to the saintly devotees. Saintly means tasma gurum prapadyeta jignashush shabde paritanishatam. We find those who are swimming in or have taken a dip, Prabhupada said, in the ocean of transcendental knowledge, and shabde paritanishatam brahman upashamashrayam, they're fully fixed in Brahman. We can become inspired and awestruck even that how does somebody do such a thing. And later on the demigods will say in the 10th canto, 2nd chapter, when they're praying to Lord Krishna in the womb, Tvayam bujaksha kilasatvadamni samadhi navesha cheta saike tvatpada potena mahakritena kurvanti govatsapadam bababdim. They say surely the way of success in devotional service is to focus on following in the footsteps of the Mahat, the great souls. And that is their recommendation. So we can stay focused by becoming enamored of and appreciative of those who are doing more service than us, and try to walk in their footsteps, try to get their association and try to follow their ways. And when by association they give us some service also to do alongside them, it's naturally absorbing and fulfilling. So that's one way, is to be with the devotees and always try to follow them as much as possible. Yes?
I have the etymology for the
Yes,
word
please.
renovate. Renovate is a verb which means to render as good as new or restore to a good condition. It comes from Old Latin, which means again, and novare, make new.
To renovate what does it say in the purport?
In the purport, it says, it talks about how The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, appears before everybody to renovate the principles of devotional service.
Yeah. This is one of the... Yes, please.
I also had a question
Oh,
regarding
good.
this. So in the purport, it talks about the principles of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, cooperating, and surrendering. And in the next sentence, Srila Prabhupada writes that adoption of all the above mentioned items or any one of them can help a conditioned soul. So I was wondering if it may be difficult to incorporate all aspects or the principles. So is there a good starting point out of the mentioned principles?
Yes, the best starting point is hearing and chanting. And those are the first two. They're also mentioned as foundational, as you know, Srinvatam Swakata Krishna. If you hear sufficiently, then Prabhupada said, then you'll be able to also chant. It's a miraculous aspect of being a human. Whatever you listen to, you'll be able to recall and then speak about. So it's quite natural. And once Prabhupada said, God helps those who help themselves, and to help oneself means to place oneself in front of transcendental sound vibration. Even if you feel slightly unwilling, if somehow or other you have the intelligence to plop yourself down somewhere where there's Krishna Katha going on and just don't move. There's a way in which it acts as a balm and it helps to transform us just by hearing. That's good use of intelligence. Find where Krishna Katha is going on. Prabhupada said this morning early when I was listening to a lecture that hearing Bhagavatam or speaking Bhagavatam was also kirtan, he said. And so find that place and try to be there. Even if you don't have the inclination to hear, if you sit there long enough and use your intelligence to stay in that vibration, then it'll start to take effect. And then, like the prostitute who came to interrupt Haridas Thakur, she was innocent, she was just put up to it by somebody who was envious of him, and she sat there, and after listening to him chant, she started going, Hari, 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 and then Hari Krishna, 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 Hari, Hari. And then it was so infectious that she became attached. So there's a turning point in the association of devotees that if we're able to hear. So that's the main thing. Try to add it to your diet and don't become anemic by missing hearing Krishna Katha every day. There's ways, for instance, as I mentioned this morning, Prabhupada said, get practiced automatically, one of his phrases. And if you set up your environment so the first thing you do in the morning is turn on some transcendental sound vibration so that it's going throughout your environment, you'll notice that even if the mind had been in some far-flung place while you were sleeping and it started churning when you woke up thinking, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to fix that? What am I going to say to that guy? Are they going to fire me? It goes on and on and on. That's a level of the mind that's always turning like a ceiling fan. It never stops. And if your mind can then catch on to some transcendental sound vibration instead, and you'll notice that suddenly you feel some relief from it, then you're in a safe space. You've reached safety. And if you practice doing that, be vigilant about staying in the vibration wherever you go, you'll notice that you feel protected. When we were in Toronto last weekend, we had 4 spots in different areas of the city where the devotees had so expertly arranged a Harinam party and a book table so we could be there and be in the proximity of the chanting. And we noticed in one place we had chanting and book distribution going on. Practically, we had taken the chanting for granted because, as everybody knows, you get absorbed in just talking to people. But then there was a slight disruption which I won't go into. And the chanting stopped temporarily. And that's when we noticed it, that it was suddenly the bubble had popped and we were exposed to the sounds and all the vibrations of Toronto. And we should feel uncomfortable when the vibration stops and have that angst that keep the transcendental vibration going. So that's one of the mainstays of our process. If you just stick to hearing, then it's natural that you'll be able to speak it later. For instance, we do all this memorization of verses. And maybe Anshu, you could tell your experience. Anshu was up in Toronto not so long ago, and he had joined with the Bhakti Academy, which is this really wonderful program that Kalakanta Prabhu of Gainesville has started, and it's kind of a franchise. It goes out to different places. In Mangalartik there are at least 50 young people there. Many of them live in the ashram, not that many, but some come from outside also. But there's a regular full program there. And maybe you could just say what your experience was of, because of your hearing and chanting, how it manifested there from your hearing, manifested into some chanting. Don't mind, but please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. I had a really nice time. I stayed in the ashram this year for about 5 or 6 weeks. For your question specifically, they gave the opportunity to most of the ashram residents to give Bhagavatam classes and other classes just to each other. So they gave us the opportunity to, they just tell us you're giving class on this day and you have like a day or so to prepare. And I noticed that having the repertoire of verses that we've been learning over the years has really helped for doing something like that, because I didn't have to scramble as much to find content. Things just naturally flowed together over the years because we've been learning verses together. And then also for answering questions, it became much easier as well to have substantiation for whatever I'm presenting.
Anything more? Just the visceral experience of sitting there and then the verses were available?
Yeah, I was really noticing Krishna's mercy and just really helping me. Like if I got a question and then I thought, oh, how can I answer this well? A verse just would come to my mind. And I thought that because of how much time we've been spending learning these verses, it really helps answer people's questions.
The reps count, don't they?
Yes.
Reps are important. Vayura nilam amritam atedam bashmantam shariram om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara. Let this temporary body be burned to ashes. Let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices. And because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. There's a way in which everything comes to bear in various circumstances in our life. And whatever we've been doing up to that very second, it comes pouring out. And the Sri Upanishad doesn't mind giving us a stark reminder that this is going to happen when the body lurches to a stop, or it coasts to a stop, either way. And then whatever you've cultivated, whatever you've heard, that's going to come to the forefront. And if you've been listening to, I don't know, if you want me to sing some silly songs, I can do that and blah, 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 blah. Then that's going to come out, and the feelings that we've developed for the temporary world will also be there. And they'll just come out with their own force. Yang yang vapis, varan bhavam, tajat yante kalevram. When Krishna doesn't mind telling us either. He's very straightforward. He just says, look, when you give up your body, everything that's in there is going to come out, and it's going to push you to the next place. So it's a practical experience. It's an amazing machine, the human body, that if you spend time, do your reps, even if you think, oh, this is working, I'm not crying and rolling on the ground, you're doing your reps. It's going in, and you hear over and over again. You chant over and over again, and transform yourself. Just like you can transform your body if you put your mind to it. It takes a lot of work, and you got to really measure it. And same thing, devotional service, we're transforming ourselves spiritually. You want to just have everything solidified inside so that you can be of more service in this lifetime and then for your own good when you're asked unceremoniously or with a little bit of a lead time invitation that you please go now, then you feel confident that I've done my reps. And, that sounds a little pedantic or just mechanical, but it's a fact that when even if it's mechanical, we take advantage of the hearing process. There's some transformation that takes place, and we'll be able to call upon it in all different circumstances in this life. So don't let anybody out-hear you in a day. Do you understand? Yeah, because sometimes people say, nobody's going to outwork me today. Don't let anybody out-hear you. Just arrange your life so you take advantage of every opportunity to hear and make that your mainstay. And then it's automatic that by hearing, then the chanting comes out and the recall is there. And not just in this circumstance we're in life, walking around, but also at the very end, Ante Narayana Smriti, it'll all be there for you. Just like Gajendra, somehow he had to take an extra stop, become an elephant, because some sage got annoyed and said blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, he was an elephant, but he still had that momentum from the hearing because he had painstakingly learned verses. And then that set of verses just came out when he was an elephant. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. I'll give shorter answers because there's devotees on the board. Vaikuntha Nayaka, Shankari Kaur, fantastic. Okay, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu had a question regarding the next verse, where Kunti Maharani says that those who continuously hear, chant, or repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, will certainly see your lotus feet, which alone stops repeated birth and death. So I was wondering if you can comment on take pleasure in others doing so, if you can.
Voltaire once said that when you appreciate the good qualities in others, then they become yours. The opposite is when you're envious of others, then you don't get anything except your own burning sensation from the envy you have in your heart. Prabhupada mentions in the Bhagavad Gita 3rd chapter, 31st verse in the purport that there's a way in which that even if you can't do devotional service the way you want to, if you've ever had that experience that I want to be at a higher level, but I'm not at a higher level, I'm at my level, I can do what I can do. Prabhupada said if you don't resent that principle, and part of resenting that principle is you see other people doing better than you, and then you think, oh, those Mangalarti going, 16 round chanting, who do they think they're? They're not really getting a taste, they're just like faking it, Whatever, if you do that, then you don't get it. But if you honor all living beings and especially devotees who are able to do more than you, when you see somebody hearing and they relish and they just, and you think, I worship you, I offer my obeisances, which is what Rupa Goswami says to do. Tanama Rupa Charitadis, fifth, 5. Krishneti yasagiritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranati bish. Just offer pranams to those who are chanting Hare Krishna. Even somebody accidentally says it, it's like, oh, sadhu, sadhu. And then if somebody's really leaning in and they're dedicated to their life, they take time, get down, offer your obeisances. And if somebody's obviously advanced because they have these qualities that nobody else can get in the material world, even by 1 million self-help classes and reading 1,000 self-help books. A relative, I helped to clean out their apartment, and they had pretty much messed up their whole life. And then I went in and we were helping clean out their apartment, and it was self-help books, self-help tapes. Apparently didn't penetrate. You can't get it unless Krishna blesses you. And if you see somebody blessed, then he says, try to get their association, try to serve them. So that's we honor the devotees. We try to appreciate. Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Grananti. There's a way in which you're catching on with your appreciation. And somehow or other, like I've seen it before. I've seen those who appreciate others, like in Los Angeles. Who's the devotee? Who's just like Jayananda? Ratnabhushan, right. Ratnabhushan, and then he had a protege. There was a younger devotee there. I think his name was Gornitai. Gornitai. He wasn't initiated, but he was a kid. And when he saw Ratnabhushan, he said, I want to be like him. So anytime you see Ratnabhushan, you'd see Gornitai. You just follow him everywhere, wear the same clothes. If he was sweeping the floor, Gornitai was sweeping the floor. If he was fixing a car, Gornitai was under the car fixing the car. And you could just see, he's starting to look like a lot like Ratnabhushan. Talk like Ratnabhushan. And so we emulate, when we try to emulate those who are doing it, and we just appreciate them. Like people appreciate, this is sort of a repetition of what I said before, they appreciate athletes. They wear their jersey around. And I see people in the Bay Area, it's like Montana. Like, what's your thing? I don't know, but I love Joe Montana. He's cool. So that's our tendency. And in fact, when we become more and more advanced in devotional service, that kind of appreciation is indicated in the verse, Tanama rupa charitari sukirtananu smrityo kramena rasana manasini yoja tishtan vraje tanaruragi jananugami kalam nayedaki limityupadesha saram. You start to appreciate the service of devotees in Goloka, in Vraja. They're like, oh, if I could only serve like that. And then Tishtam Vraje Tananuragi, you start to really track them. You got your jersey on, Subala. Hey, you got your Subala jersey on. Like, yeah, Subala, cool, man. And then this Grananti, you catch on to them because what's flowing from them is like, I resonate with that. That's my ideal in life. You can find somebody, that's my ideal. I want to be like that. You can catch it. Catch it with your appreciation. So it's such a sweet part of our devotional practice, this etiquette through which we try to appreciate everybody. And some people, we don't have to force ourselves to appreciate everybody because somebody might have different mood, but we appreciate that they're devotees, they're chanting, and maybe we appreciate them from a distance, further and further away. And other people, we come closer and closer, and we try to serve them and try to emulate what they do. Okay, that wasn't a short answer. Yes, we're getting up there to you, Vaikuntha Prabhu, and you're next, actually.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was just remembering for previous, like you said, whatever you appreciate appreciates. So.
It grows, yeah.
Maharaj, I just wanted to thank you for instilling all of us for learning these prayers. And for me, I could resonate that, okay, this is my level. Always my mind tells me that I cannot learn shlokas so much. So I paired up with a friend, devotee friend, and she and I, we were like, let's do this together. And after 2 or 3 days, I think Yash Prabhu again sent that, it's not just shlokas, it's reading the purports as well. And I was like, okay, this is something that I can really do. Just go deeper. So I try to internalize these prayers. And while I was reading the prayers, like you were mentioning how these reps manifest to hear chanting, I started deriving parallels from Mother Kunti's prayers of how Mother Kunti would pray to Sri Krishna, Lord Krishna, and how a sadhaka would pray to the holy names. And yes, today I was listening to your japa talk while driving here. Every verse, actually, from every verse, I just made some notes, but every verse has some mood of praying to the holy name. But verse 25, which usually when I speak to some of my friends, some devotees, hear some lectures, they're like, oh, this verse we gloss over, Vipada Shantu Tatchasha, that verse, and because we don't want Krishna to give us calamities. But I was like, okay, let me just study this verse very deep. and see how Mother Kunti's mood was and how my mood should be while praying to the holy name. And I'll just very quickly go through what my realizations were. Mother Kunti was embracing challenges and opportunities for remembrance, so she was praying for calamities repeatedly as they were bringing her closer to Krishna. And a sadhaka, which is me, I can adopt this attitude by praying to the holy name for difficulties, even if that difficulties is strengthening my remembrance to Krishna and intensely bringing me closer to him. Second, I think you mentioned this in today's Japa talk, dependence on Krishna alone. So her prayer was very profound because she was depending on Krishna. I'm not there yet, but through my chanting, through praying to the holy name, I can pray for complete dependence on the holy name, recognizing that the holy name is not different from Krishna. And there are some more. Seeing calamities with gratitude. Even there's one more verse where Mother Kunti is recounting that poison and the asatsanga and all of that, and she's not recounting due to some distress. She is trying to recollect all those as a gratitude, and we should also have a gratitude journal for the holy name, that you've done so much in my life, you've brought me until this point in my life. And again, yearning for Krishna's presence in all circumstances. She's praying to Krishna again and again to show her deep yearning. And a sadhaka can also pray to the holy name similarly for asking the holy name that may I always be connected to you regardless of anything. I have a very detailed notes that I've made, but thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
I recall the song by Srinivasacharya, Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadharma Samstapako. So in this song, he talks about Shastra Sunipuṇa. This means to become a genius in Shastra. And the difference, there are several definitions of the levels of devotional service. In general, there's Kanishna, Madhyama, and Uttama Adhikari. The various shastras present those levels in different ways. But one of the ways that it's presented is that the Kanishta Adhikari has weak faith and also doesn't know Shastra. It just has a sentiment, maybe cultural momentum, just likes Krishna, likes to come to the temple, Hare Krishna. And then the Madhyama Adhikari has strong faith, but doesn't know Shastra. So can't back up things with Shastra or logic. The Uttama Adhikari has strong faith, just like the Madhyam, but also has Shastra Sunipuṇa, which means, oh yeah, that goes with this goes with this. It's a universe of knowing the entire canon of the Vaishnava scriptures, and has also heard so sufficiently that he or she has a logical answer to all things. Just a good example is Vijay Prabhu, who the other day, can you recall, did I send it to you? What he sent? Can you explain how he used logic to turn somebody around and take a book? Yeah. This is an example of someone who's heard sufficiently, realized sufficiently, and is able to recall something on the spot.
The title is An Agreeable Atheist. This is Vijay Prabhu speaking. I was distributing books in downtown Mountain View, a mile from the ISV temple, when a man came to my table. I showed him the Bhagavad Gita, but he said, "Sorry, not interested. I'm an atheist." "Well," I said, "if you're intelligent, you're not an atheist." "Oh, how is that?" "There's billions of things you don't know, right?" "True. So one of the billions of things you don't know is whether God exists or not." "Now that you put it that way, you're right. I don't know." "So you're not an atheist, you're an agnostic." I think you're right. And this book, Bhagavad Gita, may answer the questions you have." "Okay, I'll take it." He gave a nice donation, and hopefully, by reading the Gita, he'll understand that God is alive and well.
this type of assimilation of philosophy, logic of God, how the śāstra goes together, the epistemology, all of that, when you have it all tight, you've got your at least master's or PhD, and you're able to recall the most important verses and know how they fit together and so forth. Then you start having this extremely potent ability to talk about Krishna, and this is one of the great joys of life, is to be fully absorbed. Shabde pari tranishnatam. This is the verse says, this is the qualification of someone who could teach other people and affect their hearts, as they've assimilated all of it. So our repetition of verses, learning them, and also taking time to read all of Prabhupada's books. Because if you don't read all of Prabhupada's books, you'll go insane. Vaikuntha Nayaka Prabhu, please go ahead. Great to see you.
Dandavat Pranam Guru Maharaj, always Prabhupada, always to you. Maharaj, this is a question I had on the point you mentioned about hearing. So I have observed that there is the transcendental sound and there is mundane sound. My observation is that I could hear for kirtan for 1 hour or a class for 1 hour, but I could then by chance I hear a jingle, an ad jingle for some 5 seconds. The rest of the day, it's the ad jingle that keeps coming to my mind. The effect that the transcendental sound has on me seems to be disproportionately small to the effect that mundane sound has on me. If this is the case, like, what is the hope for me to remember Krishna at the time of death, right? Like, it's the dice seem to be cast against me, right? So if you could please.
Well, we have to irrigate. There are so many jingles, and by irrigation, they can be expunged from our system. Sometimes when you get some kind of contamination in your blood, they say, keep drinking water and irrigate. Naturally, there's a way that these things pass out in due course of time. If we increase the amount that we hear about Krishna and associate with devotees, we'll tip the scales. So we should try to do that. We should have a plan to tip the scales. Don't give in and just stay on a plateau, but really try to develop so we get to the point that we prefer to hear about Krishna. And the other kind of sound vibrations are either we can relate them to Krishna in that we hear them and say, oh yeah, that's Maya. There's a recording of Prabhupada on 26 2nd Avenue, and it's hot, there's no air conditioning, the doors are open, it's a summer day and Prabhupada's giving a class, and in the background you can hear an ice cream truck coming. You know, they play those, whatever it is, and the devotees were kind of smiling or something, and Prabhupada said, wait, what is that? What is that? They said, it was an ice cream truck, Prabhupada, he's selling ice cream. He said, this is Maya. That's Maya calling you. And so when we have an awareness, vidyam cha, yes, side by side, we're seeing, oh, this is Krishna, that's Maya. This is the power of it. And so it's stay the course. In every discipline, there is a separation between those who are doing it as a hobby or casually and those who have decided to really go the distance and come to the next level. So that's what we want to do. We have this little laboratory here, and we're using it for that purpose, to come together and keep pushing ourselves so that we can come to this level of solidified devotional service where we're bringing in all the elements that are available to us so we can become stronger and stronger, right? We'd like to rock the world, wouldn't we? Say yes. Yeah, we will rock ourselves, and then we together rock the community, and we can go on rocking everything from inside out. So it's a great impetus to just try to make incremental increases. And also, the way that these little sound vibrations of Maya are sticky or a reminder to us, don't mess around. If you dabble, I can see these videos, some deer is right by the water and they're taking water, and all of a sudden a crocodile comes out of nowhere and just... That's what Maya is like. And it's not a plaything. Prabhupada said, you have to really become more and more aware of the fact that if I dabble in Maya and think, oh, it's no big deal, you can remember those little jingles. I mean, they come unsought and they keep after us. And we can remember that Maya is sticky. Don't mess around. It's not like you can have one foot in both worlds and then become more and more serious. Try to transfer all your assets to the spiritual world. Yes, Srivas Pandit Prabhu. Would we kindly pass a microphone back to? And coming up, Shankari Kaur, just coming to you next.
Vaikunt Nayak Prabhu, the die may be cast against you, but you have taken shelter of Vaisheshika Prabhu, so the ultimate fate is with you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Shankari Kaur, good to see you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my most respectful obeisances at the dust of your lotus feet. Just feeling the opportunity to get your association, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, just a simple realization. You were talking about the reps, and I was just thinking that every Balaram Jayanti, every Janmashtami, every festival, we kind of hear the same pastimes. Somebody may say, oh, why to go to the temple? It's the same story. I've heard it 1,000 times by now. But I was just thinking, when we lean into listening to those kathas, every single time that we hear it, new details pop up, or we start paying attention to different details, and those different details lead to different realizations. And every single time there is a new realization, the soul gets fresh kind of rejuvenation and nourishment. And it just gets us deeper and deeper into our sadhana, and that leads to the progress of our sadhana, and we get connected to and attached to Krishna. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank
the
you.
Importance of it.
That's an important point, because it's what we're doing is not rote, but there's, as I said this morning, it's namachintamani. There's a way in which we're transformed by touching the sound vibration, and that there's an opening that comes where nectar comes out from the process of chanting Hare Krishna. And that happens, for instance, when we go to the Dham. There's ways in which we become familiar with the sound vibration and the mood of the residents there, running around Govardhan Hill or being up early, the whole city for Ekadashi. And there's some little jolt you get in your heart. As I described it once when I was there, you're going around in Govardhan Parikram, and it's as if there's a spiritual electricity that runs around the whole Parikram marg. And our feet are like those connectors that you see sometimes in San Francisco. They might have removed them all, but it was all an electrical system where the train, it hooks up to these wires. Seems like an awkward system, but in any case, it's like that. It comes up through your feet, and then there's a sense you get of attachment to the places where Lord Chaitanya did his pastimes. Bhaktivinoda Thakur talked about that. And we get attached coming to Janmashtami. Bless the people's hearts who come here. You see it every year. It's an impetus for us when we see these thousands of people that come here to see Krishna on his birthday. And I think, like, God, I wish I had that kind of appreciation. And also, I always notice at Rath Yatra, there's some devotees who live far away, or because of their lifestyle, they're not so connected, but they come on Rath Yatra, and to them, it's an oasis. And you see it in their eyes. And the more we associate with Krishna in the various different ways, then the more we can become like that, where we just have a natural inclination because we've been there, we've had the feeling, we've gotten that jolt at Janmashtami or wherever it is, and then we feel it for ourselves. and we become naturally attracted to all the different processes. We're going to have to wind down because today's on a tight schedule, getting ready, but we still have 5 minutes left.